Hello and welcome back. Welcome to the complete Kaspersky technical training. During this episode, we are going to speak about data encryption, a very important module inside Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Business. It's about converting the normal data to a ciphered data that couldn't be understood unless you decrypt it by the same key you used for encryption process. The encryption algorithm is extremely important in forming the encryption process. Why? Because some attackers, if you use a fragile algorithm to encrypt your data, can run some tools to detect the encryption key, and then everything could be decrypted and attacked from the attacker. For this, Kaspersky Endpoint Security helps us in this operation by supporting multiple strong encryption algorithms. The main use of encryption on the endpoint security application is simply we need to protect the machine if it's stolen physically from anybody. This technology, we call it data at rest, because the data is stored on the hard drives and we are going to encrypt them at their state. For this, we call them data at rest encryption process. Of course, there are multiple other methods to encrypt data in motion, like SSL VPN, IPsec VPN. Some other vendors are supporting this feature through a very high-speed encryption process like Talos, if you are familiar with these vendors. We have two main types of encryption. We have symmetric encryption and asymmetric encryption. The symmetric encryption, we have one key only for the decryption process and also the encryption process. For example, AES 256 and 512. The asymmetric encryption, you have only one key for encrypting and another key for decrypting. For example, we can speak about RSA or Diffie-Hellman as examples on this method, the asymmetric encryption. Within our application, Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Windows, we are going to use symmetric encryption for both types, whether we are speaking about full disk encryption or file level encryption. And this is different from the normal method that we are using, which we call asymmetric encryption, that happens between the network agent on the client and Kaspersky Security Center or administration server. We have three main types of encryption supported on Endpoint Security for Business. We have full disk encryption, file level encryption, and bit locker management. File level encryption, we are encrypting individual files existed inside folders, hosted on hard drives or removable drives. The full disk encryption, we are encrypting the whole drives and removable drives that exist on the machine, except some small parts of the boot sectors to be able to boot our operating system. Finally, we have BitLocker management. We are managing the BitLocker application related to Microsoft that's used for encrypting the whole machine also. But we can't use full disk encryption and BitLocker management features at the same time. We need to choose only one feature to be used as the encryption method using Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Business. To be able to use this feature, we need to have total license or advanced license. These are the only licenses that we can use to support data encryption inside Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Business. First of all, we are going to take full disk encryption, speak about its components, and make a lab on it, how to use it, how to fully encrypt our machine, and also how to restore our machine in case that we forgot the password or something bad happened to our machine. So how can we recover all the data by restoring keys from the administration server? Then we can change our password and decrypt our drives one more time. So full disk encryption, again, it's about hiding all the system files, including metadata and file system locations, except a very tiny portion of the booting sector to be able to boot our operating system. The key will be generated based on external information, and it will not be stored locally on the system. And this is the secret behind the security of full disk encryption of this feature inside Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Business. You don't need to be connected to the administration server to complete the encryption process or decryption process. And this is the idea of data at rest encryption process. You talk the laptop and go to your home. Also, encryption and decryption is applied to your machine. You need to enter the password to be able to decrypt the data existed on the hard drives. Kaspersky Endpoint Security full disk encryption is used only with devices that support one operating system. You will not be able to use this feature if you have multiple operating systems on your machine. Windows 10, Windows 8, or Linux operating system, for example. So if you have multiple operating systems, you will not be able to use this feature. Here is the process of generating the key and encrypting the data through Kaspersky Endpoint Security on our machine. First of all, Kaspersky Endpoint Security will generate the key that will be used for the encryption process. Then this key will be sent to Kaspersky Security Center. Secondly, Kaspersky Endpoint Security will install something called Authentication Agent. This is the secret of the encryption process. By installing this agent, this will cover all the processes of the operating system inside it. So we can enter our password through this application to decrypt the data. Once this authentication agent installed, the PC will restart to check the compatibility of this application with the operating system. If it didn't detect anything bad and it's compatible with your operating system, then the second stage is to encrypt your hard drive. Once this operation finished, you need to enter the password that will be used for generating the key that will decrypt the primary key that you have entered previously, or the key that Kaspersky Endpoint Security generated firstly. When device boots, the user needs to enter the password that will generate a key that will decrypt the primary key that Kaspersky Endpoint Security generated at the first stage. If the password is correct, then the authentication agent boots the operating system and you can access your data. This will be much clearer when we start our lab. All these stages will be clear when we start to enable this feature and see authentication agent installation process and enter our password and see everything in our real example related to Giant Lab. Before we get started to see how we can apply full disk encryption, there's a tool you can download from Kaspersky support site called FDE, or Full Disk Encryption Test Utility. By installing this tool and run it on your machine, any incompatibility issues for Kaspersky Full Disk Encryption will be clear for you before you start to apply the service on your operating system. So not to make any problems to your machine, download this tool. You can search it in Google. Type in Google FDE Test Utility Kaspersky. It will take you directly to the URL of downloading page to download the tool and run it on your machine to see if there are any problems on your machine that will be incompatible with Kaspersky Full Disk Encryption feature. Once you make sure that everything is good on your machine and you can run this feature on your machine, the first thing to do is to change the components of the application if it doesn't support data encryption. Previously, you need to change the components to support data encryption. This is the first stage. And we were discussing this before during creating our installation package. The components of the application itself might not support data encryption. So to change the components of the application, we have a very important task on the level of the Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Windows. This application is named Change Application Components. Create this task to start changing components to support data encryption. Once you finish, you need to change the policy components related to full disk encryption under this module that's called Data Encryption. Go to Application Settings, Data Encryption, Full Disk Encryption. Then the first thing is to enable using Kaspersky property for encryption, because here we are speaking about Kaspersky property itself, not BitLocker. We have said that we have two main types to fully encrypt our disks. The first one related to Kaspersky, the second one related to BitLocker. We can manage BitLocker itself. So here we can choose Kaspersky Disk Encryption, then click on the link to take you to the Kaspersky Disk Encryption. Here we can change multiple options to support our full disk encryption. We have two main choices for the encryption, to encrypt and decrypt. The encrypt process, this is the needed one. If you need to decrypt the encrypted hard drives, you can choose decrypt all the hard drives, as we are going to see. During encryption, automatically create authentication agent for Windows users. This is very important to be picked up, and then you can choose the accounts that will be used for entering or authenticating with authentication agent to decrypt the data. You need a username and password to be supplied to authentication agent to decrypt the data, right? How can you get these username and passwords? I'm speaking about Kaspersky Endpoint Security. What are the main accounts that will be used for this operation? Kaspersky Endpoint Security asks. These accounts could be domain accounts, could be all the users existed on the account, could be other users and passwords that we can enter manually. As you see here, If you click on this link, it will take us to the authentication methods. Could be all accounts, could be all domain accounts, whether it's join the domain or the local accounts exist on the PC. So it could be domain accounts or local accounts. Once you configure full disk encryption feature, you will be faced with a message to enter the password that will be used to access all the hard drives that you have decrypted through the authentication agent. The device will restart after you configure full disk encryption. Then you need to enter the username and password that you need to use for disk decryption process. The device will restart, then you need to log into the authentication agent that will enable you to access the encrypted drive through the username or password. You need to put them here. You can monitor the application itself during the encryption process, as we are going to see. And there's a very important topic here we need to cover before we get started into our lab. How to recover if there is something bad happened to your drive and you can't access your data because they are encrypted. So to recover from forgetting your password or something bad happened to your operating system and you can't log into your PC, you can recover your password through communicating with the administration server. First of all, click on reset the password. You will be supplied with some challenges strings. You can copy these strings to be given to your administration server. Here on the administration server, click on the PC, you will find an option called grant access to the device. After you grant the access, you can copy these strings to the administration server. The administration server itself will supply you with some access keys. There are also some keys that you need to copy from the administration server to the device itself. Once you do so, it will tell you you can reset your password, as you see here. Then you can reset your password and can log into your encrypted drive, as we are going to see in our lab. Without further speaking and much information, we need to get started with our lab related to full disk encryption to grasp the whole idea and what are the main activities that we can do here in this lab. First of all, we are going to apply full disk encryption. Then we need to recover our password by asking the administration server. And also we need to see how to decrypt the encrypted drives for any reason. Suppose that we don't need to apply encryption at the moment, we can choose another action called decrypt the drives, and we are going to see how to monitor these processes in our lab. We will try a lab to understand Kaspersky full disk encryption inside data encryption module for Kaspersky endpoint security for business. The main stages that we will pass through during this video: firstly, we will enable data encryption through a task called change application components. This will be created on the level of Kaspersky endpoint security application. Once we finished, we will find that data encryption is enabled on our application. Then we will update our policy for Kaspersky endpoint security for business to support full disk encryption with changing settings inside this part and understand them to be able to see the result for full disk encryption and see how authentication agent will enable users to access the encrypted drives. Let's get started. Here we are on MMC console. We need to create a task. This task is related to Kaspersky endpoint security for Windows. The name of the task will be change application components. This is the task. We have created this task before, so I will access it directly to see the internal settings. The first thing is we need to make sure that we apply this task on the level of DMZ client. And settings here, we need to make sure that we enable these components. Under data encryption, we need to enable file level encryption, full disk encryption, and BitLocker. Once we choose our application modules that we need to enable, I will click apply and OK. Then start your task to affect your DMZ client PC. Click on start and wait until this task finished. Once your task finished, as you see, your client, which is DMZ client, needs to be restarted to update the application components. Here, this is our DMZ client. As you see here, there is a notification telling you you need to restart your computer to complete update. So I will restart this client now to see if I have the application components changed or not. After the computer restarts, we can see the components of our application. If I go to security part here, we will find that we have another module started to work here within this application called encryption, file level encryption, full disk encryption, and encryption of removable drives. I've enabled full disk encryption recently, so it appears to you that it's green. The second stage here, after we change the components of our application, is to configure our policy to support full disk encryption. This is our Kaspersky Security Center. What we need to do is we need to double click on our policy here to start configuring data encryption, especially full disk encryption. Here we can access data encryption. Inside data encryption we have common encryption settings. Under these settings we can check the password settings for authentication agent, portable file manager, and encrypted packages. What we care for today is the authentication agent. So here on settings we can configure the minimum password length, the capitals, digits, and all that stuff. And we can also block the password after number of trials. Here I will keep them at 10. By default you will find them 5, but I increase them to be 10 to try multiple username and passwords. Here I will not change anything, but in your case, if you want to use the recommended settings, and it's preferred of course, you can click on this button here to use the recommended settings. So it will edit all settings to match the recommended settings from Kaspersky experts. Here on full disk encryption, what we need to do is to choose the technology. Again, we have said that we have two main technologies, Kaspersky disk encryption and BitLocker drive encryption, or not specified to completely disable this feature. So I chose Kaspersky disk encryption. For the encryption mode, you have two main modes, encrypt all hard drives and decrypt all hard drives. Of course, we need to try this one firstly, to encrypt all the hard drives. We are going to see this, the second choice here, after we finish the first one, but we need to see firstly how can we encrypt the full disk. So I would choose encrypt all hard drives. Some options here are related to the authentication agent users that will be used to authenticate with the authentication agent. Again, we need to understand the concept of the authentication agent. The authentication agent is the software that will be installed by Kaspersky Endpoint Security for Business to manage the process of the encryption related to hard drives. Once Kaspersky Endpoint Security encrypted all the drives existed on the client's machine, to authenticate, to be able to access these encrypted hard drives, we need to use the authentication agent. And to access the authentication agent, we need a username and password, right? How can the authentication agent get those username and password? These options will enable the authentication agent from getting these username and passwords. Here, for example, we can find automatically create authentication agent accounts for these kind of users. What are these users? We can choose all the accounts existed on the computer, the local and domain, or we can choose only the domain accounts, or we can choose all local accounts. If you have any service account with one-time password, you can choose it also. Here we can create authentication agent accounts directly after the user signs in. So once the user signs in, depend whether it's local related to the domain, whatever the type of the user is, once it signs in, we can create authentication agent accounts for this user. We can save the username entered in authentication agent, so the next time that the user will try to authenticate with this software, the username will be typed directly. Here we can encrypt used disk space only. This option is quite useful if you don't want to waste your time encrypting your hard drives, to encrypt only the used space, because the free one, it doesn't matter. If the attacker accesses the free space, he will not be able to be harmful for me, because I just need to care for the used space. So you can choose this option if you don't have the time to wait until the encryption process finished. Here you can exclude some hard drives from the encryption process if you need. Once you finished your configuration related to full disk encryption, click apply and OK. So what will happen after I click apply and OK to my DMZ client? Here, after you finish configuring the full disk encryption process, a yellow sign will appear here on your Kaspersky application telling you that you need to restart your PC to complete the updates that you have made through Kaspersky policy. So after you restart your application, after you restart your PC, the authentication agent will start to work to do the first stage. What is the first stage? Finding compatibility issues between the authentication agent and the client's PC. It will not encrypt the hard drives unless it made sure that there are no incompatibility issues between the authentication agent itself and the client's machine. So after you restart, you will find the screen of the authentication agent, and it tells you that it needs to find the compatibility issues. then you will start your Windows, you will wait for minutes, and then you will find your Kaspersky endpoint security is encrypting your existing drives. Here, if I access our application one more time and go to monitor, you will find here a tab called encryption monitor. But this will happen after some minutes. After some minutes trying to check the compatibility issues between your client's machine and the authentication agent. If I click on encryption monitor, we will find that right now our Kaspersky endpoint security is trying to encrypt our drive here. We have only one drive, which is C drive. So it's trying to encrypt the full disk. As you see here, Kaspersky endpoint security is trying to encrypt the disk. After finishing encrypting this disk, we can restart to see if we can authenticate with the authentication agent to access this encrypted drive or not. Let's just wait until this encryption process finished, then we are going to restart our PC one more time. Now, as you see, it became encrypted for 100%. Means if we restart our PC now, it will ask for a username and password through the authentication agent. And because we have selected all the users existed on this computer, if you entered the administrator user or the normal user, then authentication will succeed and we can access this encrypted disk. So let's start our PC to see if the authentication agent will authenticate us or not. Let's close our endpoint security application and then I will restart this PC. Once it's restarted, as you see, the authentication agent started for us and it needs the username and password to be able to authenticate with this software. So let's enter the username and password related to the local clients, DMZ client. I will, for example, enter administrator. This is the username that I have on this PC. We have also another user called user, but I will use administrator and enter the password that I have made for this client and click enter. So the Windows will start automatically despite we didn't create any users through this authentication agent. Why? Because we have it shows on the policy settings to use the local accounts or the all accounts existed on this computer. For this reason, we can authenticate with this software and access this encrypted drive. If this computer is stolen for any reason, then the attacker will not be able to access this encrypted drive unless if he didn't enter this username and password for the PC itself. So the hard drives will be completely encrypted and he can decrypt these drives under any circumstance. The second activity that we need to do now is to recover if we forgot the password or something bad happened to our operating system and we can't access our encrypted hard drive. So we need to recover for this authentication agent by renewing our password. This could happen through communicating with the administration server by exchanging some strings to start renewing our password. So I will restart my PC one more time to see if I can renew my password or recover it through the administration server or not. I will restart it one more time. Here I will click restart and wait until the restart process finished. It restarted one time again. Here we can click on forgot your password. So if I navigate to forgot your password link here and click enter, so it tells me you're about to start the password reset procedure. If you continue, please contact the system administrator and provide them with the generated data listed in the following screens. The system administrator will then create a temporary access code for you to access the system. This process may take some time. So here we are going to copy some strings from this PC to the administration server and also from the administration server to this authentication agent to start renewing the password. So I will click continue here to start this process. Here we need to move our mouse randomly or type some letters to generate some random keys. So let's start to type anything here to start generating some random keys. Here are our keys that we can enter to our administration server to start renewing our password. So we need to copy this string from here to our administration server grant access screen to be able to renew our password. Let me open Kaspersky Security Center. Here's our Kaspersky Security Center. This is our client. I will right click on our client here. There is an option here called grant access in offline mode. This is what we need to use to start exchanging strings. I will click on this option here. Then it tells me we need to have this string that you generated on the client. Once we enter this string, then I will create access key. These access key will be generated here. I will take them and copy them from here to the client back again to start renewing our passwords. So let's start with the first process to copy all of these strings from the client to here to the administration server. Once you finish copying the string here on the administration server, as we said before, we are going to create access key. Click here to create access key. We need to copy these access keys back again to the client to start renewing the password. This is what we are going to do now. Let's click continue here. Then we need to type the string that we have generated, or the access keys that we have generated on the administration server. So after I copy all the strings from the administration server to our client here, as you see they are all accepted. You need to have all of them accepted as you see here. Then I will click continue. Then I can renew the password for the administrator, as you see here. You have an option to start your Windows without changing the password. Here I can click on start the Windows without password change. Click enter, then the Windows will start with you. This is the exception process that we can do if we faced any problem to enter our password to access this encrypted drive. The third thing that we need to do here related to the encryption or full disk encryption is to decrypt our encrypted disk. For any reason, suppose that you don't want to have your disk encrypted, you need to decrypt your disk through a task that we can do on the administration server. This is the second action of the full disk encryption process related to Kaspersky, which is decrypt the disk. Here let's access policies. Then Kaspersky endpoint security for Windows. This is our policy. Double click on this policy here. Let's access again our data encryption part. Here under full disk encryption, we can choose to decrypt all the hard drives. This action will decrypt all the hard drives existed on your client, so they will not be encrypted anymore. Let's click apply and OK to see the results of applying the policy to our Kaspersky endpoint security for business on our client, DMZ client. Let's enter our password here for DMZ client. So now the disk is decrypted, as you see, and the status for it decrypted for 1%. It will try to decrypt all the disk until it reaches 100%, and that means your disk will not be encrypted and the authentication agent will no longer be activated, as we are going to see after this decryption process finished. After the disk is decrypted for 100%, means all the data existed on this disk became in a clear text. Let's restart our PC to see the result. As you see, it didn't ask me for any authentication through the authentication agent because we have decrypted all the disks existed on this PC. So we have two main actions: to encrypt our disk or to decrypt our disk. Encrypt means we are going to use authentication agent to access this encrypted disk. Decrypt means we are going to disable the authentication agent and everything on this disk became in a clear text, and there is no meaning for the encryption here. But keep in mind, if you encrypt the disk, you need to decrypt it to get back to the primary state. So without doing decryption, the encrypted data will still as it is.